having some trouble there, tough guy.
Maybe you should just turn it off and on again.
Thunder cracked across the sky as if the heavens themselves were reacting to the moment. Inside the grand banquet hall of Stoneworks Corporation, reporters pushed forward, cameras clicking rapidly. The room was filled with gasps, whispers, and stunned faces. At the center of it all stood the company's billionaire CEO, the same man everyone believed was a poor office plumber just hours earlier. He stood beside a young woman in a simple blue gown, her hands trembling, her eyes wide with disbelief. She was the maid who used to serve tea to the staff. The same maid who once offered him a warm smile and a hot cup of tea when others barked orders at him. But the most shocking moment was not the revelation of his true identity. It was what happened next.
Before we continue, if you believe our stories deserve to be heard, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves meaningful African tales. Let's keep our stories alive together.
The billionaire CEO, now confidently dressed in a black tuxedo, pointed toward a large screen on the stage. The lights dimmed. A video began to play showing countless clips recorded secretly across months. Clips of women in the office shouting at the plumber, insulting him, humiliating him. Clips of some staff laughing behind his back, mocking his torn boots and old toolbox. And then clips of one woman, the maid, gently handing him tea, telling him to take a break, offering him food from her small lunch pack whenever she felt he hadn't eaten. The room erupted in murmurs. But then, a loud crash sounded at the back of the hall. A group of board members stood there, faces pale, sweat gathering on their brows. One of them pointed at the billionaire, voice shaking. You tricked us. This wasn't part of the plan. If you expose this, you will destroy the company." The CEO turned slowly, the entire hall silent. "The truth," he said calmly, "has never destroyed anything, only lies do." Gasps filled the room. A few reporters nearly dropped their microphones. The maid looked terrified. She had no idea she was standing in the middle of the biggest corporate scandal the company had ever seen. Just as the CEO raised his hand to speak again, ready to reveal the reason behind his shocking undercover act, the lights went out. Screams rang out immediately, chairs scraped, people stumbled in darkness. A sudden bang echoed from somewhere near the stage, followed by a voice shouting, "Shut it down before he speaks." The maid felt someone grab her arm. "Run," the CEO whispered urgently in the dark. Her heart pounded as they rushed through the chaos. Reporters' camera lights flickered faintly, shining on confused faces. Someone yelled, "Stop them, don't let them leave." But before the audience, or even she, could understand what was happening, the CEO pushed open the emergency exit, dragging her into the cold night air. Alarms blared inside the hall behind them. She gasped, "What's going on? Why did the board react like that? Why are we running?" He stopped, breathing hard, and looked at her, this young maid who had shown him kindness when he had nothing. "There's something I have to tell you," he said. "Something I should have said a long time ago. I didn't go undercover just to find true love. I went undercover because—" A car screeched around the corner, headlights blinding them. The doors opened sharply. "Get in," a voice commanded. "They're coming." The maid froze. "Who is coming?" The CEO swallowed hard. "Everyone who doesn't want the truth to come out." Before she could ask another word, someone shouted from behind them, "Over there, don't let him escape." The chapter closes on this moment, fear, confusion, and mystery swirling around them, while the maid wonders. How could a simple act of kindness lead her into something this dangerous? And what truth was powerful enough to make a billionaire live like a plumber for months? The answers lay just ahead, but the danger did too. Cold wind slapped their faces as they ducked into the back seat of the black SUV. The maid's hands trembled uncontrollably. She had never been in a situation like this. Her life had always been simple: serve tea, clean trays, help the staff, and return home to her small apartment. But tonight, everything had exploded into chaos. The door slammed shut behind them. The driver, a middle-aged man in a leather jacket, hit the accelerator. Tires screeched against the wet pavement. "Sir," the driver said to the CEO without looking back, "they cut the lights on purpose. They want to stop the announcement." The CEO nodded grimly. "I suspected as much." The maid stared between them, confusion tightening her chest. Who are they? Why would anyone try to stop you from revealing the truth? He hesitated. Then he finally spoke. Months ago, I discovered that several members of my board were involved in a massive fraud scheme, money laundering, ghost contracts, secret accounts, everything. They were draining millions from the company behind my back. Her eyes widened. Millions, but how did you find out? That's why I went undercover as the office plumber, he said quietly. I wanted to see what was happening at the lowest levels of the company. I needed to understand the culture, the staff, the operations, everything the board hid from me. But why pretend to be poor? She asked, still struggling to understand. Why not just investigate openly? He gave a tired smile. Power hides the truth. When people know you are rich, they act differently. When they know you are the CEO, they lie to your face. But when they see a poor plumber with worn boots and a broken toolbox, they ignore you, they speak freely, they show who they truly are. She swallowed hard. That made painful sense. The driver suddenly cut into a narrow side street. Headlights from another vehicle flashed behind them, speeding after them. The maid's heartbeat quickened. They followed us, the driver muttered. The CEO leaned forward. Lose them, Marcus. I'll try, sir. The maid held onto her seat. She had never imagined her kindness to a man she believed was a struggling plumber would pull her into something like this: corruption, danger, board conspiracies. She looked at him. But why bring me with you? I'm just a tea maid. He turned to her, eyes softening for the first time that night. Because you are the only person in that entire building who treated me like a human being. No judgment, no mockery, no disrespect. You saw a poor man, and instead of stepping on him like others did, you offered him kindness. Her breath caught in her throat. He continued, you reminded me that there are still good people left in this world, and whether you believe it or not, you helped me through some very difficult days. She felt her cheeks warm, though fear still wrapped around her. But he said, his tone shifting again, there is another reason I brought you. Before she could ask what it was, the SUV jerked violently as another car rammed into them from behind. The maid screamed. Hold on, Marcus shouted, swerving sharply. The CEO grabbed her hand, steadying her. Her heart pounded wildly. This wasn't normal corporate drama, this was life and death. Marcus, take the old bridge route, the CEO instructed. They're trying to cut us off, Marcus yelled. Another slam, metal screeched. The maid clutched the CEO's arm. Why are they chasing you like this? What exactly do they want? He looked at her, eyes dark with a truth heavier than she expected. They want to silence me, forever. Her breath froze. Why? She whispered. He exhaled slowly. Because the fraud I uncovered is just one layer. There is something bigger, something that would destroy several powerful careers and expose a secret that could shake the entire company and the city. And the board knows I'm about to reveal it. The maid's eyes widened. So they want to? Yes, he said softly, they would rather eliminate me than let the world know the truth. The car behind them accelerated, trying to ram them off the road again. Marcus shouted, sir, they're pulling beside us. The CEO pulled the maid down as the windows shook. Before another crash could hit them, Marcus swung the SUV onto a rugged dirt path. Their pursuers overshot the turn, skidding wildly. Breathing harshly, Marcus pushed the vehicle forward until they reached a small, abandoned warehouse near the outskirts of the city. He killed the engine. Silence fell. The maid's shaking body slowly relaxed, though her mind spun uncontrollably. The CEO turned to her gently. There is one more thing I need to tell you before this gets even more dangerous, he said. She looked at him, confused and frightened. What is it? He opened his mouth. But then Marcus's phone buzzed with a sharp, alarming tone. Marcus glanced at the screen and his face drained of color. Sir, you need to see this. He passed the phone back. The CEO stared at it, jaw tightening in fury. What is it? She asked. He slowly turned the screen toward her. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her picture, the maid's picture, was on the news already, with a headline flashing beneath it. Mysterious woman seen escaping with billionaire CEO, suspected accomplice in corporate sabotage. Her knees went weak. She backed away, voice barely a whisper, they're blaming me. The CEO stood, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I'm afraid this is only the beginning, he said. Her heart dropped. This was no longer about kindness or love. It had become a war. A war she never planned to be part of. Yet somehow she was now at the center of it. The warehouse felt cold and hollow, its broken windows whispering as the wind pushed through them. The maid wrapped her arms around herself, unable to stop trembling. Moments ago, she had been serving tea in a quiet office. Now her face was being broadcast on national television as a criminal accomplice. Marcus peered outside cautiously, making sure no one had followed them. The CEO paced the dusty floor, his fists clenched in frustration. The maid could barely speak. Why would they put my picture on the news? I didn't do anything. The CEO stopped packing and looked at her firmly. Because they need someone to blame, someone harmless, someone powerless, someone they think can't fight back. Her eyes filled with tears. But I don't understand. How am I involved? He stepped closer. You aren't involved, you're just caught in the crossfire. They saw you run out with me, they assumed you know something, and if they can paint you as a suspect, it will distract the public from their own crimes. She wiped her face with shaky hands. So now they want both of us. Marcus locked the warehouse door and walked toward them. Sir, we need a plan. The board is not just panicked, they're desperate. They won't stop until they regain control. The CEO nodded. I know. The maid took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. You said there was another reason you brought me with you tonight. Her voice softened. What is it? He hesitated again, the same hesitation that began back in the car. But before he could respond, Marcus's radio crackled with static. Unit 5 confirming, suspects last seen near searching. Marcus cursed under his breath and turned the radio off. We have maybe 30 minutes before they search this area. The CEO looked at the maid, his expression now filled with urgency and something deeper, something personal. You need to hear this before anything else happens, he said, before time runs out. The maid's heart pounded. I didn't just go undercover to observe the company, he began slowly. I went undercover to test people, to see who they truly were when they believed I was nobody. She swallowed nervously. Most people failed that test. They mocked me, insulted me, treated me like dirt. Even people who smiled at me as CEO couldn't hide their true colors when they thought I was a poor plumber. His eyes softened. Except you. The maid blinked. Me. Yes, his voice was quiet but firm. You showed me more kindness than I have received in years. You gave me food from your lunch when you barely had enough for yourself. You helped me fix a leak even when it wasn't your job. You spoke to me with respect when others treated me like I wasn't even human. Her face warmed. No one had ever said such things to her. You're the reason I didn't give up, he added. And the reason I continued the investigation. You reminded me that not everyone had forgotten how to care. Before she could respond, Marcus cleared his throat. Sir, I hate to interrupt, but we must move soon. The CEO nodded, then turned back to the maid. There's something else, he said, something important. She stepped closer. What is it? He opened his mouth to speak. But the warehouse door suddenly rattled violently. All three spun around. Open up, this is the police, a voice boomed from outside. The maid's heart dropped into her stomach. Marcus whispered, they found us. The CEO grabbed the maid's hand. Come on, there's another exit. They rushed through a narrow corridor toward the back of the warehouse. Dust fell from the ceiling as heavy fists pounded against the metal door. Break it down, a voice shouted. The maid's breath quickened. Why are the police after us too? Because the board controls more than the company, the CEO said grimly. They have connections, influence, and money. They can twist the law however they want. They reached a small wooden door. Marcus pushed it open. It creaked painfully but held. Outside, darkness wrapped around them. An abandoned lot stretched ahead. Hurry, Marcus urged. They ran. Shouts echoed from behind them. There they're escaping. The CEO and the maid sprinted across the field, hands still clasped. Marcus stayed behind, trying to slow the pursuers. The maid stumbled, but the CEO steadied her. Don't stop. Suddenly a flashlight beam caught Marcus. Drop your weapons. I'm unarmed, Marcus yelled. The maid froze. Looking back, Marcus. Go, Marcus yelled. Protect her, sir. The CEO pulled her forward. They ducked behind a broken fence and crawled under it, emerging near an old railway track. The moonlight cast silver shadows over the stones. They paused to catch their breath. But the maid couldn't shake the fear growing in her chest. "We can't keep running," she whispered. "What are we going to do?" He looked at her, exhausted, dusty but determined. "We're going to clear your name, we're going to expose the truth, and we're going to take back the company." Her eyes widened, but how? He studied her face. "With your help." "My help?" she echoed, confused. "What can I do?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn flash drive. "This," he said, "contains everything, the fraud records, the forged signatures, the secret accounts, all the evidence needed to bring them down." She stared at the flash drive, her heart racing. "But why give it to me?" she whispered. "Because you're the only one they would never suspect of holding something this powerful." Before she could respond, the distant sound of sirens drew closer. She looked at the flash drive in her palm. Her hands shook. Her life had changed forever. And she knew there was no turning back. Night deepened around them as the sirens faded into the distance. The maid stood still, clutching the small flash drive like it was burning her palm. Her breathing was uneven, her head filled with questions she never imagined she would need to ask. The CEO gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "We need to keep moving. If they sweep this area, they'll find us." She nodded without speaking. Her mind was racing, her picture on the news, the police chasing them, Marcus's capture, and now this tiny device holding enough evidence to destroy powerful men. She felt swallowed by a world far too big for her. They began walking along the railway tracks, moving deeper into the darkness where they wouldn't be easily spotted. The stones crunched beneath their feet. A cold breeze brushed her cheeks. She tightened her grip on the flash drive. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "To someone I trust," he replied quietly. "Someone outside the company, someone who can help us get the truth out safely." "Who is that?" "You'll meet him soon," the CEO said, "but first there's something you need to understand." She turned toward him. "Once we expose the board," he continued, "everything I've planned, the undercover work, the recordings, the evidence will make sense. But until then, the most dangerous person in this entire situation is me." She looked confused. "You?" "Yes," he said, "because I'm the only one who knows everything, and that makes me their biggest threat." They continued forward until they reached a small hill behind an abandoned train station. The CEO stopped there and pointed to an old, rundown building across the field. "That's our destination," he said. "A friend of mine owns it. He'll keep us safe until morning." The maid's legs ached, but she pushed forward. When they finally reached the building, the CEO knocked in a distinct rhythm, 3 short taps, 2 long ones. After a moment, the door cracked open. A tall man with short gray hair, wearing simple clothes, peered out cautiously. "Jarred," the man whispered. "Yes," the CEO answered, "it's me." "And the girl?" the man asked, studying her closely. "She's with me." The man nodded and opened the door wider. Inside was a modest room with dim lighting and old furniture. It felt safe, at least safer than the dark streets. The maid sat down slowly, still overwhelmed. The man looked at her with gentle eyes. "You're brave to be here." She shook her head. "I didn't choose to be involved." "Sometimes," the man replied, "kind people are pulled into battles they never started. That doesn't make them weak, it makes them necessary." The CEO stepped forward. "We need to hide the evidence before they track us here." The man pointed to a small steel locker. "Put it inside, I'll secure it and make copies." The maid hesitated before handing the flash drive over. A part of her felt like she was letting go of her last piece of control. The CEO noticed. "You're safe here," he assured her. "I won't let anything happen to you." She nodded but remained tense. As the man examined the flash drive, the CEO sat beside her. "There's something else I need to explain." She looked up. He exhaled slowly. "When I went undercover as a plumber, I didn't expect to learn anything about myself, but I did. For the first time in years, I lived without money or status. People walked past me like I was invisible, except you." Her cheeks warmed again, though her nerves were still sharp. "You treated me like a human being," he said, "and somewhere along the way I began to care about you more than I intended." Her breath caught. I know this is not the right moment, he continued, and I know your life is upside down right now because of me, but I need you to hear this. What I feel for you didn't start tonight. It started long before all of this chaos. She stared at him, stunned, her heart fluttered in a way she did not expect. But before she could respond, the man at the locker gasped sharply. "Jared, we have a problem." The CEO stood immediately. "What's wrong?" The man turned the flash drive toward them. "It's encrypted." "That's fine, Jared," the CEO said. "I'll unlock it." "No," the man replied slowly. "You don't understand. This isn't your encryption. It wasn't locked by you. Someone else secured it." The maid blinked. "What does that mean?" The man hesitated, then met her eyes. "It means someone else knows you have it, and they locked it remotely." Her stomach twisted. The CEO's face hardened. "They're tracking us." The man nodded grimly. "And it gets worse. This encryption has a trigger. If you try to break it, it could erase everything." The maid's chest tightened, so the evidence could disappear. "Yes," the man replied, "and if that happens, the board wins." The CEO clenched his jaw. "We need another way in." The maid looked between them, fear creeping back into her voice. "What do we do now?" Before either man could answer, a sudden knock struck the door. 3 bangs, loud and forceful. All 3 froze. The man whispered, "No one followed you, right?" The CEO stepped back, shielding the maid instinctively. "Stay behind me." The knock came again, harder this time. The maid's heart pounded wildly. The CEO raised a finger to his lips, signaling her to stay silent. Then a voice called from outside. "Jared, open this door. We know you're in there, and you're not leaving with that girl." The maid's blood ran cold. They knew. They had found them. The room froze. The maid could feel her heartbeat in her throat. The air inside the small hideout thickened, heavy with danger. "Jared," the CEO moved quietly toward the door while the maid instinctively stepped away, her back pressing against the wall. The older man positioned himself near the steel locker, eyes narrowed, ready for whatever would happen next. The knock came a third time, louder than before. "Jared," the voice outside repeated, now sharper, colder. "We're not here to negotiate. Open this door." Jared looked at the older man. "How many exits?" "One," the man whispered, "and they're standing right in front of it." A sinking fear filled the maid's stomach. The older man walked silently to the small window beside the door and peered out through the edge of the curtain. His jaw tightened. "There are 3 of them," he whispered. "They're not police. These ones are private enforcers, men the board hires when they want something done quietly." The maid's legs trembled. Jared stepped back from the door, thinking quickly. "We're not fighting them," Jared said firmly. "We're getting out." "How?" the maid whispered. "There's only one exit." Jared moved to the far wall and began pulling aside an old, dusty shelf. Behind it was a narrow, hidden doorway. The maid gasped softly. "That was there all along." The older man nodded. "Built years ago, just in case." He motioned toward it. "Go." Jared placed a hand on her shoulder, guiding her gently. "Stay behind me, no matter what." She nodded, though fear made her hands shake. The pounding on the front door grew violent, echoing through the entire building. Bang! 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 The maid flinched at every strike. "Jared," the voice barked, "last chance." Jared whispered to the older man, "Stall them, give us time." The man nodded. "Go, I'll catch up." But the maid began. He cut her off with a reassuring smile. "Someone has to delay them. I'm the only one they're not after." Jared squeezed the maid's hand. "We need to move now." She forced herself to breathe and followed him through the narrow passageway. It led into a tight corridor that smelled of dust and old wood. Faint light seeped through cracks in the boards above them. Behind them the pounding stopped. A terrible silence filled the hideout. The maid whispered, "Why did they stop?" Jared didn't answer. Then, a loud crash shattered the silence. They had kicked the door down. The older man's voice boomed, "What do you want? This is private." A harsh slap cut him off. "Where are they?" one of the intruders growled. Jared motioned urgently, "We have to hurry." They rushed deeper into the passage until they reached a trapdoor leading outside. Jared pushed it open and helped her out into the night air. They emerged behind the building, concealed by tall, overgrown grass. Shouting erupted inside the hideout. "She's not here," a man yelled. "Search the back." Jard grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a small shed behind the property. They crouched behind it, hidden by shadows. Heavy footsteps approached outside the hideout. The maid pressed a hand over her mouth, afraid any sound might reveal them. Two men appeared at the back, gun holsters visible beneath their jackets. "Spread out," one commanded. "If they're here, we'll find them." Jard leaned close to her ear. "When I say run, run as fast as you can." Her eyes widened. "Where?" "There's an old truck parked behind the hill. If we reach it, we can get away." She nodded shakily. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. Almost beside them. Jard whispered, "Now run." They sprinted out from behind the shed. The grass brushed against their legs as they dashed toward the hill. The men turned immediately. "There, stop them." Gunshots cracked through the air. The maid screamed. Jard pulled her into a zigzag path, shielding her with his body. Bullets hit the ground beside them, kicking up dirt. They reached the hill and stumbled down the other side, rolling slightly before scrambling back to their feet. "There's the truck," Jard shouted. A rusty pickup sat hidden under a large tree. He yanked open the driver's door. "Get in." She jumped inside. He started the engine. It sputtered but came to life. Just as they began speeding away, one of the enforcers crested the hill and fired again. A bullet shattered the back window. The maid ducked with a cry. Jard gripped the wheel. "Hold on." The truck roared down the slope, bouncing on uneven ground. They drove until the gunshots faded. Only then did Jard slow down, his breathing harsh. The maid turned toward him. "Jard," the old man, "did they?" He swallowed tightly. "We'll go back for him, I promise, but not now. If they catch us, everything ends." Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't want innocent people getting hurt because of her. Jard reached over and squeezed her hand gently. "I'm sorry you're going through this," he said. "You didn't deserve any of it." Her voice trembled. "Neither did you." For a long moment they rode in silence. Then she asked softly, "What exactly is on that flash drive? Why is it so dangerous that the board would hire people to chase us?" Jard's jaw tightened. "It's not just fraud, not just money laundering." He glanced at her, eyes dark. "It's about a hidden project, something illegal, something that could put thousands of people at risk if it continues." Her breath caught. "Thousands?" "Yes," he replied, "and the board is willing to hurt anyone to keep it secret." She stared at him, fear and determination mixing inside her. "We have to stop them," she whispered. Jard nodded. "We will, but we can only win if we're smart." The truck rumbled along a quiet dirt road as dawn approached slowly over the horizon. But their moment of calm did not last long. Just as the road curved toward a bridge, the maid noticed something ahead. A black SUV. Parked sideways. Blocking the road completely. Her heart sank. "Jard, someone is there." He pressed the brakes lightly. "Stay calm." The SUV's doors opened. Two men stepped out. And then, a familiar voice echoed across the empty road. "Jard, this has gone far enough. Turn around or you won't leave this place." The maid's blood ran cold. They were trapped again.
If this story is already touching your heart, please take 1 second to like this video, subscribe to Black Race Tales, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us keep telling these powerful African and Black community stories to the world.
The early morning sun cast a pale glow across the deserted road as Jard slowly brought the truck to a halt. Dust swirled around the tires. The maid gripped the seat tightly, her chest rising and falling quickly. Ahead of them, the black SUV sat like a silent threat. Two men stood beside it, one tall and broad-shouldered, the other shorter with sharp eyes. Then the voice came again. "Jard," the tall man said, stepping forward, "you've caused enough trouble, turn around." Jard stepped out of the truck, raising both hands calmly. "You don't want to do this, let us pass." The tall man shook his head. "You've left us no choice." The maid's fingers trembled as she peeked over the dashboard. She could barely hear Jard's voice over the pounding of her heartbeat. The sharp-eyed man stepped forward. "That girl is coming with us, the board wants her." Jard stiffened instantly. "She has nothing to do with this, leave her out of it." "She was with you," the man replied coldly. "That's enough involvement." The maid crouched lower inside the truck, her breath caught. They wanted her, not for what she had done but because she was the easiest target. The tall man sighed. Jard, hand her over and we walk away, no one gets hurt. Jard's jaw tightened. You know I can't do that. The sharp-eyed man smirked. Then you're willing to die for a maid, a tea girl. Jard's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. If that's what it takes. The maid's chest tightened. She had never heard anyone defend her like that, not even in her family, let alone her workplace. She felt tears prick her eyes. The tall man shrugged. Last warning. Jard stepped forward, blocking their view of the truck. If you want her, you'll have to get through me. The sharp-eyed man nodded to his partner. Fine by us. The tall man reached behind his back, and in that split second, Jard lunged. The maid gasped as Jard tackled the tall man to the ground. A fistfight erupted immediately. The sharp-eyed man rushed toward the truck, but the maid reacted without thinking. She slammed the door lock down and crawled to the opposite side. Come out, he barked, pounding the window. Jard dodged a punch and swung back hard, sending the tall man stumbling. But the sharp-eyed enforcer was already pulling open the driver's door. The maid froze. He grabbed her wrist. Come here. Suddenly Jard appeared, grabbing the man by his collar and yanking him off the truck. The maid crawled out the passenger side and stumbled backward, breathing shakily. The two men ganged up on Jard, forcing him backward. Jard, she cried. Jard took a punch to the ribs but stayed on his feet. He shoved one attacker away, but the other landed a blow on his jaw. Blood trickled from his lip. The maid hesitated. She was terrified, but she couldn't stand by and watch him take the beating meant for her. Her eyes darted toward the ground. A rock lay near her feet. Her hands trembled, but she grabbed it. The sharp-eyed man rushed at Jard again. The maid stepped forward, heart pounding, and swung the rock with all the strength she had. Greg. The man fell to the ground instantly. Jard turned, stunned. The maid stared at her own hands, shocked by what she had done. The tall man growled and charged at her. Jard acted fast. He picked up the dropped weapon, a metal bar, and struck the tall man's arm, sending him howling in pain. The man dropped to his knees. Jard grabbed the maid's hand. Run. They sprinted toward the truck. Jard jumped into the driver's seat, the maid into the passenger side. He started the engine and the truck jerked forward. Behind them, the sharp-eyed man groaned and tried to stand. The tall man reached for his damaged arm. The SUV door opened again. They're not done, Jard muttered. Hold on. He slammed his foot on the accelerator. The truck roared, kicking dirt into the air. They sped down the road, leaving the attackers behind, wounded but not defeated. The maid shook uncontrollably. I hit him. Jard glanced at her. You saved my life. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I didn't want them to hurt you. And they won't, he said firmly, not while I'm here. The truck rumbled along a bumpy dirt path toward a nearby town. The maid exhaled shakily, her adrenaline fading into exhaustion. Jard finally slowed down. We need to lay low for a few hours. The more distance we put between us and them, the better. The maid nodded silently. You did something brave back there, Jard added. Don't blame yourself. She looked at him, her eyes soft but troubled. People are getting hurt because of me, Marcus, the old man, and now you. I don't want anyone suffering because of my involvement. You didn't choose this, Jard said. They dragged you into it, but you're not alone. She looked away, thinking deeply. In her whole life, through poverty, struggles, and being overlooked, no one had ever protected her the way Jard did. And yet she still didn't understand why. They drove for several minutes until they reached a quiet village at the edge of the forest. Jard parked near a small, unused shed behind an abandoned store. He turned to her, his voice serious. There's something we haven't talked about yet. She swallowed nervously. What is it? He took a deep breath. The hidden project the board is protecting, the one on the flash drive, it involves illegal toxic waste disposal. They've been dumping hazardous materials near residential areas to cut costs. If the public finds out, the company could collapse and the board members could go to prison. Her eyes widened in horror. People could get sick, children. Yes, he replied, some already have. Her heart clenched. So all of this, the undercover work, the violence, the chase, everything is because you were trying to stop them. He nodded, and because they realized I knew too much. The maid covered her mouth. This is bigger than I imagined. Jard leaned back, exhausted. We can't give up, we're close, but the encryption, that's our biggest obstacle. The maid stared at the dashboard. What if, she began slowly, the person who locked it isn't one of them? Jard frowned, meaning. What if it was someone trying to protect the evidence, someone inside the company, or someone who wanted to help you? Jard paused, genuinely considering it. It's possible, he admitted, but who? Before she could suggest anything else, Jard checked his phone. It had one bar of signal. A single message had come through. He opened it, and his expression shifted instantly. What is it? She asked quietly. Jard handed her the phone. The message read, "Stop running, we know where you're hiding, she cannot save you." The maid's blood turned to ice. Her voice shook. How do they know where we are? Jard tightened his grip on the steering wheel. There's only one way they could. She looked at him anxiously. What way? He looked straight ahead, jaw clenched. There's a tracker somewhere in the truck. Her breath hitched. They weren't safe. Not even for a moment. Jard's words hung heavily in the cramped silence of the truck. The tracker. The maid felt her throat tighten. The small village around them was quiet, too quiet. The sun had climbed higher, casting long shadows across the abandoned shops. She glanced nervously at the rearview mirror, half expecting black SUVs to appear at any moment. Jard turned off the engine immediately. We can't stay here, they'll pinpoint this location in minutes. The maid exhaled shakily. Where do we go now? We abandon the truck, Jard said, and we move on foot. The idea terrified her. The world outside felt dangerous, crawling with unseen eyes, but she nodded anyway. Okay. Before they stepped out, Jard reached under the seat and pulled out a small toolkit. He quickly dismantled the dashboard, searching for the tracker. Wires came loose, screws dropped onto the floor, panels peeled away. Then, there, he muttered. A tiny black device, no bigger than a coin, blinked with a blue light. The maid's stomach flipped. How long has that been there? Long enough, Jard said quietly. He crushed the tracker beneath his boot. Sparks flickered and died. But destroying it didn't change the truth. They were already exposed. We move now, Jard said. They left the truck behind and slipped through the narrow alleys between the old village houses. Some windows were boarded shut, others had curtains that fluttered like silent watchers. The maid clung close to Jard as they walked. Will they check every house? Yes, he said, which is why we shouldn't be in one. They headed toward the forest at the edge of town. The trees swayed gently, offering shadows deep enough to hide in. As they stepped past the last fence, the maid looked back at the quiet village. Everything feels like a trap now, she whispered. Jard nodded. That's what happens when powerful men are desperate. They walked deeper into the forest. Branches cracked under their shoes, birds rustled overhead. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in broken patches. For the first time in hours, the maid felt a moment of calm, though fear still hovered in her chest. After a long walk, they reached a small clearing. Jard finally stopped. This is far enough for now, he said. We'll rest here for a few minutes. The maid sank onto a fallen log, her legs finally giving way. She rubbed her arms, trying to steady her breathing. Jard sat beside her, watching the forest carefully. After a moment, she turned to him. Jard, why did you really pretend to be a plumber? You said it was to investigate the board, but earlier it felt like something more. He inhaled deeply. I wanted to understand the people working in my company, he said. Not the executives, not the managers, the people at the bottom, the cleaners, the drivers, the tea maids. Her eyes softened. People like me, she said quietly. Yes, he admitted, I wanted to know who they were, how they lived, what they faced every day. He looked at her then, his expression open, vulnerable. And then I met you, and I started seeing the world differently. A warmth spread through her chest, overpowering the fear for a moment. I never imagined a CEO would be interested in someone like me, she whispered. Why not, he asked. You showed me more dignity and compassion than anyone else in my life. She looked down, embarrassed. I just treated you the way anyone should be treated. That, Jard said gently, is exactly why you stood out. Silence settled over them, not awkward but delicate. Then the maid's voice trembled with a question she had held for too long. But why didn't you tell me the truth earlier, before everything got dangerous? Jard ran a hand through his hair. Because I didn't want you to feel used. I didn't want you to think you were part of an experiment. I wanted to tell you when the investigation was done, when you were safe. She nodded slowly. And now, she asked. His gaze held hers. Now I'm telling you because being honest with you matters more than my plans. Her chest fluttered. But before anything else could be said, a branch snapped in the distance. The maid jumped. Jard stood immediately, motioning her behind him. Someone's here. Voices murmured faintly through the trees. Jard crouched low, scanning the shadows. Stay quiet. The maid's pulse hammered as two silhouettes appeared between the branches. She grabbed Jard's arm, terrified, but he held her hand firmly. The voices grew louder. Spread out, one man said. They couldn't have gone far. The maid's breath caught. It was the enforcers again. They had found the village and now they were closing in on the forest. Jard pulled her down behind a fallen tree trunk. We'll wait until they pass. The footsteps drew closer. Leaves rustled. The maid squeezed her eyes shut. But suddenly her phone buzzed. Her eyes shot open in horror. Jard's head snapped toward her, stunned. She scrambled to silence it, but the buzz echoed through the quiet forest. There, one of the men shouted, over that way. Jard grabbed her hand. Run. They took off through the forest, branches slapping their arms, leaves crunching loudly underfoot. The men followed, shouting for backup. The maid stumbled as her foot caught on a root, but Jard lifted her without slowing. We're almost out of the thick trees, he said breathlessly. But when they burst into another small clearing, both froze. A tall chain-link fence surrounded a restricted construction site. Beyond it were unfinished buildings and heavy machinery. No way around, Jard muttered. The enforcer's footsteps grew louder. Jard, what do we do? She whispered, voice breaking. He scanned the fence, eyes landing on a loose panel at the bottom. There, he said, we can crawl under. He knelt and lifted the rusty metal just enough for her to squeeze through. Hurry! She dropped to her knees and crawled into the dust, slipping under the fence. Jard followed quickly. Once inside, they ran toward the taller building for cover. But as they reached the corner, a voice echoed above them. Well, we finally found you. They looked up. A man in a suit, one of the board members, stood on the unfinished balcony, surrounded by guards. His cold smile cut through the morning light. You should have stayed in hiding, Jard, and you, he said, eyes locking on the maid, you should never have helped him. The guard stepped forward. Trapping them. No forest, no truck, no path to run. And nowhere left to hide. Dust swirled around the half-constructed building as Jard pulled the maid behind him. The board member on the balcony watched with a cold, satisfied smile while several guards descended the unfinished stairway, boots thudding against metal. You've been a thorn in my side for months, Jard, the board member called out. Pretending to be a poor plumber, investigating us, running around like some hero. It ends today. Jard raised his chin. You're the one who should be worried, not me. The man laughed. Without the evidence, you're nothing, and we both know the flash drive is useless, encrypted for good. The maid's heart pounded. Was that truly the end? Jard stepped forward. If you think encryption is enough to stop the truth, you never understood me. The board member frowned slightly, just as movement caught his attention. From behind the guards, someone stumbled into view. Marcus. Bruised, handcuffed, guarded by two enforcers. The maid gasped, Marcus. He lifted his head weakly. Sir, don't give up. The board member chuckled. He refused to talk, but I'm sure you will for her sake. His gaze shifted to the maid. She felt her knees weaken as the guards spread out to encircle them. Jard whispered to her, stay behind me, no matter what happens. But there was fear in his eyes, not for himself but for her. The board member raised his voice, bring them up. Two guards approached. Jard clenched his fists, preparing to fight, but the maid reached for his hand. No, she whispered, we can't win like this. Her voice trembled, but it carried a truth Jard understood instantly. Fighting brute force wouldn't help them now. They needed something bigger, something smarter. She turned toward the board member, summoning every ounce of courage. You think you've won, she said, Because you hid the truth, because you're powerful, because you can chase us, hurt us, and twist the law. Her voice strengthened. But you forgot something. The man laughed mockingly. And what's that? That people talk. The board member froze slightly. The maid continued. You locked the flash drive, you encrypted it, but someone else knew, someone who tried to protect it before you could destroy it. Jard looked at her sharply. The board member scoffed. There's no one left in the company loyal to you. That's where you're wrong, she replied. From the corner of the construction yard, a small shape emerged, an older man limping slightly. The man who helped them earlier. He was alive. Jard's eyes widened with relief. You made it. The older man held something up. A tablet. I don't need to break the encryption, he said, because I created it. Gasps filled the air. Guards jarred, even the maid. The board member's face drained of color. You, he spat, you're the one who. Yes, the man replied. I encrypted the evidence the moment Jard brought it to me. I knew you'd try to stop him, so I locked it with a key only I could use. He tapped the tablet. A loud beep echoed. Then the tablet screen lit up with files. Evidence. Video clips. Financial records. Signed authorizations. Illegal disposal maps. Everything. The board member shouted, "Stop that, get him." But it was too late. The older man tapped another button. Uploading, the screen read. The maid's heart soared. He's sending it. To multiple places, the older man added. Government agencies, journalists, environmental groups, it's everywhere now. The board member's face twisted with rage. Shut it down, shut everything down. But nothing could stop the upload. The guards looked at each other, panic seeping into their expressions. Some stepped back. Others dropped their weapons. They knew the war was over. The board member shook with fury. You fools, you've ruined everything. Jard stepped forward, pulling the maid with him. No, he said, you ruined everything when you chose greed over people. Two government security vehicles suddenly appeared outside the construction site, sirens blaring. Armed officers stormed in, shouting commands. Hands in the air. Drop your weapons. Board members of Stoneworks Corporation, you are under arrest. Chaos erupted, but this time the chaos belonged to justice. Guards surrendered, officers cuffed the remaining enforcers. Marcus was freed from his restraints, collapsing into the arms of medics. The board member tried to flee, but officers tackled him to the ground. You can't do this, he shouted. I'm a board member, I own everything. No, an officer replied coldly, not anymore. Jard exhaled slowly, a breath he'd been holding for months. The maid watched everything with trembling relief. They had survived. And the truth had won. As the area cleared, Jard turned to her. His face was softer now, free from fear, lies, and disguises. You were incredible, he said. You kept going even when everything seemed impossible. She shook her head. I just followed you. No, he said gently. You stood by me when everyone else ran, you believed in me when everyone else doubted, and you risked your life for me. Her eyes softened. You risked yours for me first. Jard stepped closer. I meant what I told you before, he said quietly. My feelings for you didn't start tonight, and now that all of this is over, I don't want to hide anything anymore. The maid felt her heart flutter. What are you saying? She whispered. He took her hands in his. I'm saying I don't want to face the world without you. I'm saying the woman who treated a poor plumber with kindness is the woman I want to spend my life with. Her breath caught. She had never expected to hear such words from anyone, let alone from the CEO she once served tea to. Her voice trembled. Jard, are you sure I'm just... He shook his head. You're not just anything, you're the one who saw me when no one else did. And for the first time since their nightmare began, she smiled. Months later, the company was rebuilt with new leadership. Jard returned not as a CEO but as a visionary partner determined to create fairness. And the maid, now his wife, walked beside him, respected and loved in a way she had never believed possible. Their story became a reminder everywhere. Kindness sees what wealth and titles never can. And sometimes the poorest man in the building is a billionaire looking for the one heart money cannot buy.
Thank you for watching Black Race Tales. Remember, every story carries a lesson, and every lesson carries our legacy. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this story with someone who needs its message today. See you in the next tale.